or speak truth into power have to stand up in the face of great repercussions, right? So there may be, again, a heavy price to pay. And it's not always easy to find your voice or feel comfortable using it. The choice of silence and inaction or acceptance is often before you. And sometimes it can feel like the easier and more accessible choice, sometimes. But we know that typically that's going to be that noise, that thing that's just picking at you, gnawing at you, right? That truth is going to keep bugging you until you do something about it. So in a discourse on colonialism, which was written by Aimé Césaire, he was one of the founders of the Negritude movement on the continent. In the book, which is also one of those must-gets and a must-read, Aimé Césaire points out that Aimé Césaire is talking about colonization being equated with progress, right? So typically when you talk about how damaging colonization has been, people like to say, oh, but now they have roads. Oh, but now they have the polio vaccine. Oh, but now they have X, Y, and Z. And so they look at colonization and the destruction that and the havoc that it wreaks as being a small price to pay for this quote unquote progress, right? So in the book, he says, they talk to me about progress, about achievements, diseases cured, improved standards of living. I'm talking about societies drained of their essence, culture, trampled underfoot, institutions undermined, lands confiscated, religion smashed, magnificent artistic creations destroyed, extraordinary possibilities wiped out. They throw facts at my head, statistics, mileages of roads, canals, and railroad tracks. I'm talking about thousands of men sacrificed to the Congo Ocean. I'm talking about those who, as I write this, are digging the harbor of Abidjan by hand. I'm talking about millions of men torn from their gods, from their lands, from their habits, from their life, from the dance, from wisdom. I'm talking about millions of men in whom fear has been cunningly instilled, who have been taught to have an inferiority complex, to tremble, to kneel, to despair, and to behave like flunkies. They dazzle me with the tonnage of cotton and cocoa that has been exported, the acreage that has been planted with olive trees or grapevines. He says, I'm talking about natural economies that have been disruptive, harmonious and viable economies adapted to the indigenous population, about food crops destroyed, malnutrition permanently introduced, agricultural development oriented solely towards the benefit of metropolitan countries, about the looting of products and the looting of raw materials. They pride themselves on abuses eliminated. I too talk about abuses. But what I say is that on the old ones, the very real, they have superimposed others, very detestable. They talk to me about local tyrants brought to reason, but I note that in general, old tyrants get on very well with the new ones, and that there has been established between them, to the detriment of the people, a circuit of mutual services and complicity. A discourse on colonialism, and that was from page 42. So the author is not referring to an environment in which speaking one's mind or speaking truth to power is an easy thing. We see what an intricate, carefully planned out system has been created to make folks feel like you might not want to speak up, or else, right? With his statements, when he talks about colonization not being worth it, most people, he's not sharing a popular idea. He's not sharing an idea that everybody has or holds or even is going to willingly agree with, right? Most people aren't even vibrating at a high enough frequency to understand the idea. And my statement isn't an insult or an elitist view. It's just to say that people, especially in this day of age, have fallen victim to weapons of mass distraction, right? So you got social media. You see people constantly in their phones, and that's all they're doing all day, every day, Stuff is going on all around them, and all they can do is this. You see, it's to the point where many parents aren't even speaking to their children. They put television in the car and turn it on when they're going to, up the street to the store, as if you can't have a conversation with your child. My godchildren got in my car and asked if I had a television. I was like, no. You better look out of the window. Quit playing. And I told him, and if I did have one, it wouldn't be on. Or you see people like, I got to get home so I can watch Real Housewives of wherever. That is some unhealthy mess. You want to rot your spirit? Keep watching that stuff, right? It's just mess, and it appeals to the worst in us. So it's such a spectacle that you're looking like, what's going to happen now? Ooh, did she say that? It appeals to the worst inside of us versus us spending our time on something real. Bad food. By the time you finish filling up on all that garbage, not only is your body getting sick, but you're full and you can't move, right? And then you're in this cycle. You're full, you can't move, you're getting fatter, you're getting sicker, you're getting this, you're getting that. It's just, the food is killing us. And speaking of bad food, let's think about the rotten carrots that are being dangled in front of our faces, also known as trinkets and beads, right? In exchange for things that are made to seem like they're helpful. When I lived in Benin, there was this big, giant, very strange-looking concert hall. And when we passed it, I was like, what is that? And I remember some of my friends saying, that was built for us by the Chinese. They were so nice. They came and they just built that for us. And I was like, I would probably want to look into a little more about the agreement associated with the receipt of that building. Because I doubt very seriously anybody's that nice. And sure enough, it turns out that they had to sign over an agreement that allowed China to overfish their waters. So clearly, some folks just weren't as nice and as generous as other folks might like to think. In the Teachings of Ptahhotep on page 33, he says, the fool who does not hear, he can do nothing at all. He looks at ignorance and sees knowledge. He looks at harmfulness and sees usefulness. He does everything that one detests and is blamed for it every day. He lives on the things by which one dies. His food is evil speech. How familiar is that? Can we not see that in the society that we live in today? These words are timely yet timeless. So clearly that phenomenon existed back in the day, and we can still see it and see it happening today. People revere the Real Housewives of wherever. We have children, girls who are trying to get pregnant so they could be on Teen Mom, on the Teen Mom show. What part of the game is that? Even the parenting, people are taking parenting cues and tips from these television shows, which, by the way, show constant and blatant disrespect for parents. So, and then people wonder, why are we having so many problems? So again, with this pervasive negative mentality, these minds full of Isfet as being the prevailing mentality in society these days, resistance takes courage. Resisting against what everybody else is involved in, what everybody else looks at as completely and totally normal, right? It requires courage and good old-fashioned gumption. I like that word, gumption. Quiet. Baba Jahi always teases me and says that I'm already a grandmother. So another thing that takes a lot of courage is changing your ways. It takes courage to change your ways. I am in the process of once again changing my eating habits, okay? I love rice and cheese and ice cream. Rice, cheese, and ice cream do not love me, because if they did, they would not treat me the way that they do. They would not treat me the way that they do. And don't get me wrong, I love kale and beets. I really, really do love kale and beets, sincerely. But I keep cheating on them with ice cream and stuff. And honestly, it's not my fault. I'll say it's not my fault. The ice cream lures me into it. What happens is I go to my refrigerator. Maybe I'm looking for like frozen peas or something. And I open the door and I'm like, I see the ice cream out of the corner of my eye, but I'm not paying attention to it. And then the ice cream just starts talking to me like, hey, girl, I see you looking at me. Come on over here so I can give you some sugar. And that's what happens. And then I end up eating ice cream and then the kale and stuff. It's just, then, we got problems. So we're working on it, though. Right? We're working on it, though. But oftentimes, the most revolutionary action we can take is within ourselves. We have to ask ourselves on a daily basis, on a regular basis, what am I thinking? What am I speaking? What am I doing? Right? If the answer is not M.I.T or working towards M.I.T, you got some real work to do. Some real work to do. Resistance applied without M.I.T in mind is counterproductive. Yes. Resistance applied without M.I.T in mind is counterproductive. And sometimes we get into that mode. Sometimes we resist because we have become so accustomed to doing some certain things in a certain way that we just want to resist against any change to it, even if the change is healthy, even if the change makes sense, even if the change is good, even if the change is much needed. We live in a community where folks, like I said, we have a long history of resistance. And so, folks get into that mode sometimes, but sometimes it's just a hindrance. We also often hear people speaking their negative thoughts and publicizing them as being real. They're like, I'm a realist. I just know that this can't happen. But that could have been said about Jose. I love her, just like the stories I read in the Hosea and the story of Ptahhotep and many of the other texts that I read. I love revisiting the story of the founding of Jose, which came about on faith. Just like we're remodeling this kitchen, we're doing work, because faith without work is worthless. But we also have to have a hefty amount of faith, because sometimes we just don't know how it's going to happen. We just know it's going to happen. We just know it's about to happen, period, dot, as Mama Angina would say. So I get it. Resistance against things sometimes is healthy, but other times we just have to temper it a little bit. We have to manage and balance it. Often because we're in a newer sort of spiritual paradigm, resistance against our past religious experiences is something that we see, right? And I get it. Some of that stuff needs to be thrown out. Some of it really did. That being said, some gospel music is really good. Right? Some gospel music is really good. It's to the point where many white churches are hiring gospel choirs to bring people in because they understand that the music is rousing, it's good, it's enjoyable, everybody loves it, and it's very healing. And I'm not talking about the operatic, the and coming and forth and down the river. Like, maybe that works for some people. But I'm talking about the real hand clapping, that music that you can feel. That feels good, right? That feels good. And instead of, looking at our structures and criticizing them, we have to look at them and analyze them and understand that there is so much Africanness in African American spiritual worship, that if we're tossing that away, then we're tossing away a vital part of our history and who we are. Why would we do that, right? We got to take it back and be like, yeah, let's taking our stuff and clean it off, right? Clean it off, make sure we get the gunk off, because we are smart enough to know exactly what are actual components of our own tradition, and then we take it and we make use of it for ourselves, right? We take it and we make use of it for ourselves. We have to be careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And even that saying, you imagine you got a tub of bathwater with a baby in it and you paying so little attention that you just tossing a child out with it? That's a lot. That's a lot to just toss out a baby with some bathwater. The very saying itself is really very deep. I don't think people give it enough credit. So the same can be said for seemingly new ways of doing things, right? Too much of anything is a problem. And that's where my balance comes in. So like I said, sometimes people are resistant to new things just because they're new. And typically, people aren't willing or able to recognize that that's where their resistance is coming from. Not willing or able to recognize or admit it. Even if they know, they're like, that ain't what it is. That ain't what it is, right? I remember I had a conversation with my sister who, for a long time, was just really, for various reasons, feeling very antisocial. So I would call her and I would be like, hey, Trina, let's go out and let's do something. And she would be like, I don't feel like it. And so I would just like beg her. Come on, we got to get out. It's a nice day. Let's do something. You know me and my, everything. I'm always cheerful. That really is how I am. It's not an act. So I'm calling her like, it's going to be great. We can go out. We can do something. We can have lunch. It'll be wonderful. And she's like, I don't feel like it. So it got to a point where after a while, she would accept my invitations. But she would only do so after we had gone through the whole song and dance of me begging her, right? So then it became a ritual. I call, I ask her to go, she says no. I keep begging, she says no. I call her back, I'm like, Trina, I think you really want to go. And then finally she says yes, and she has a good time. And then the next time it's time to go somewhere, the cycle starts all over. And I finally told her, look at here, I'm tired of that. You know you want to go. You know you want to go. Just say yes. Because this song and dance business is ridiculous. A, it's tiring for me. B, it's kind of hurtful because you seem to be enjoying me doing this. And C, I'm going to stop in a minute. So if you really want to continue having outings, I tell you what you want to do is you want to just make it easy for me to help you help yourself. That's how it gets to a point where I stop trying. I'm tired of it. I'm not going to deal with it. And look, I'm going to stop trying. So I suggest you take my kindness while it's being offered. And it worked out perfectly. Ever since, right? So what do you do when you realize you've acted as a chronic resistor, right? What do you do? How do you reconcile that? How do you fix it? Because we can have all these great philosophical and grand ideas, but a lot of times we don't know where to start when it's time to bring about change in our lives. So one thing you can do is remember the universal truth that we utter in this community on a regular basis and go ahead on and rise like Rod Daly, right? Every day is a new day. Every day is a new day. You get a brand new chance, like your own little lottery. You win every day. You ain't got to buy no ticket, right? You ain't even got to buy no ticket. You get a new day every day for free. And we each have an opportunity to make things better for the world and within ourselves by just taking advantage of the opportunity for growth in that new day. Now, in the immortal words of a rapper Ice Cube, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. Right? That's instruction number 2. At the heart of that statement is self-reflection. Don't lie to yourself. You have to figure out where this behavior is manifested. Absolutely don't lie to yourself. And know that whatever you say is bad enough if you lying to the rest of the world about what you do and don't do. If you lying to yourself, that's a real problem. That's a real problem because you can't move. Right? You cannot move if you're not even being honest with yourself. So lying to yourself will also keep you in a state of spiritual stasis, right? You won't be able to grow. You just be static, sleep, like in Planet of the Apes when he fell asleep and all of a sudden the whole planet was apes. You wake up like, boy, so much of my life has went by and I wasted so much time being bitter or angry or whatever else it is, right? So you have to also start with asking yourself, why? Why am I feeling like this? Is whatever it is I'm resisting really a problem? Or is it just me and my stuff? And what can I do to work out my stuff? What can I do to heal myself so that I can stop this highly unproductive behavior? And then another thing that will help is making apologies if you need to. Own up to your actions, right? Sometimes it hurts. It's not comfortable. Shame hurts. It's supposed to. Sometimes it makes you feel sick. It's uncomfortable. And guess what? Again, it's supposed to be. It was designed that way. That discomfort that you feel when you do something wrong. You see children, sometimes they do something wrong and you tell them about it and they look like they're about to shrivel up like, oh my goodness, I can't, or they're crying or whatever. Sometimes you got to just help them understand that that's all part of the process. Not in the interest of shaming the child, but to help them to understand that feeling that you're feeling right now is necessary. And when you're doing something and you feel that again, pay attention to that because it's telling you probably shouldn't be doing it. Right? Shame, and I'm not talking about that you were born a sinner type of shame. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the natural reaction you get when you are not doing M.I.T. When you you're not doing it. Right? When you're wittingly not doing M.I.T. Or even if it's subconsciously. Now, when we talk about that natural reaction that your body has to doing wrong, you get to choose or heed it or ignore it. Right? The Most High has equipped you with the power of choice. You get to choose whether or not you're going to heed or ignore it. You want to resist something? Resist the urge to shun your growth by hiding from your mistakes. That's a good thing to resist. You want to just put up a resistance for no apparent reason? I'll give you a reason. Resist that. Resist that because you are hindering yourselves from your growth. That, and I'm talking, when I say you, I'm talking about me too. Like all these words I speak are for me as well. Now, rarely is there healing or reconciliation without retribution. And sometimes when you go to a person and you talk to them, it's going to be uncomfortable because they're going to tell you exactly how it made them feel, exactly what you did wrong, exactly whatever. But you have to take it because you did do the wrong. And that discomfort is part of the lesson. And it's okay because guess what? After you make your admission, you'll still be breathing. The sun will still rise and fall. The earth will still be spinning. Right? Things will still be on sale for $1 at McDonald's. Stuff ain't going to change. But whatever it is, you got to make it right. And standing up in the face of our own wrongdoing can often feel as difficult as standing up in the face of our oppressor. Sometimes even more, right? We have to be really brave to be honest with ourselves. That also takes great courage. Drug addicts try to escape pain by numbing it, right? They try to escape the pain of whatever they're experiencing in their lives by numbing it. We also see the colonizers who needed to try to justify slavery by waging a global campaign to classify us as less than human. That was their effort to cull and address the pain, the dissonance that they were feeling. It's not that they didn't feel it, I don't think. It's that they were comfortable with ignoring it. That's the problem. When you're comfortable with ignoring that kind of spiritual dissonance, your soul is sick and you got some work to do. Right? So understand they do that too. And then they even try to sometimes put a noble face on their actions, right? They try to say that they were doing God's work. How often are people who are resisting just for the sake of resistance, they try to make their behavior okay by saying they're protecting something. They're trying to uphold something. They're the vanguard, right? How often does that happen? It's the same thing, trying to put a noble face on Isfet. Wrong is wrong. Wrong is wrong. And praise God, because mistakes are made to be learned from. It's about whether or not we choose to appreciate and take that lesson. So remember our Hosea passage from earlier, right? Speaking is harder than all other work. The one who understands this makes speech a servant. Speech can be used powerfully for good, and speech can be used powerfully for evil. We understand that. But guess what? The nice thing is there's power in our speech. The scary thing is there's power in our speech. You can say things to somebody and a horrible thing can be said to a person. It could be a few words or one sentence or one bad name, and folks will remember that to the end of their days. You can say a kind word to somebody, might just be a couple of words, a sentence, and some people will remember that to the end of their days. It's Ma'at balance at its best. You know, what a wonderful example we have. But also it's this wonderful example that we have to follow. And we understand just how important it is that we use it wisely, that we use our powers for good and not evil. And on the Hosea on page 6, there is a passage, the first paragraph. I'll read this passage to you. It says, it's in the book of Knowing the Creations, in the section called the creation of Ra as Ptah. And it says, it is Ptah, a form of Ra, the most great, who has given existence to all the divine powers and to their essences through his heart, mind, and tongue. Thus it came to pass that the heart, mind, and tongue ruled all other members through teaching, that Ptah Ra is within every body as heart and mind, and within every mouth as tongue. So this passage is helping us to understand our God self and the power of God within us. Further down the page, it says, indeed, every word of God came into being by that which the heart and mind thought and the tongue commanded, right? So we keep these positive, healthy thoughts in our minds, and we put our words out into the universe. You know, this is another example of speaking wisely. And it says, towards the end, and thus justice is given to one who does what is loved, and punishment is given to one who does what is hated. Now know that in this instance, or in the context of the message that I'm giving today, doing what's hated includes not doing ma'at and not taking responsibility for one's actions, right? Running away from our blessing. We're not doing ma'at to ourselves. Ma'at isn't just about how we treat other people. It's about how we treat ourselves. And punishment doesn't always involve prison time, right? And as a matter of fact, you would be locked in your own personal prison. So maybe you're not in San Quentin or Santa Rita or whatever other sand they have to torture our people, right? That you can be locked in the solitary confinement of your knowledge of your wrongdoing and feel a feeling associated with your awareness of it. That's a lifetime of punishment. You know you done did something wrong and you don't do anything about it. You know you've been foul and you ain't had the decency to say, I'm sorry, my bad, I apologize, I was tripping. Whatever words you might need to get out, you know that you ain't been right and you haven't done anything to try to make it right. Guess what? A, you're going to feel that, and B, that's your punishment. But you can get off punishment if you come right, if you come correct. It may not be easy, but do it to liberate yourselves. Do it to help other people because it's the right thing to do, but also do it to liberate your spirit. Because every time you pile one of them on, your spirit gets heavier and heavier and heavier, right? Heavier and heavier and heavier. Don't be the phoenix running from the fire. Know that you can survive it and emerge glorious and victorious and stronger, more beautiful and better than before. I'm going to close with a passage from John G.M. James's Stolen Legacy. And as you know, Stolen Legacy is one of our community's foundational texts. It's also the title of an exhibition that is running right now in San Francisco, and it's an exhibition that is the first exhibition that I've ever helped to curate. So it was my curatorial debut. And it is running from now until November, I want to say. So I have some flyers, and I'll make sure that I distribute them afterwards. And also a number of folks from our community, Brother Maynu and Baba Gregg, are going to be participating in a panel discussion about the exhibit later in the year. So we want to make sure we get as many people out as possible. But, at the African American Arts and Cultural Complex. And again, I'll give the details at the end of the service. But basically, on page 105 in Stolen Legacy, James talks to us about the neophytes, those who were to become initiates. And he talks about their virtues in preparation for initiation. He said that neophytes were required in preparation for initiation. They were required to keep the following 10 commandments, underlying which were the 10 principles of virtue. Right? So the neophyte must control his thoughts, control his actions, have devotion of purpose, have faith in the ability of his master or teacher to teach him the truth, right? Have faith in himself to assimilate the truth, and have faith in himself to wield the truth. So not just memorize this and regurgitate it, but really understand and internalize, and then be able to reproduce the truth through that person's life and the way that they live. They also said that the neophyte has to be free from resentment under the experience of persecution, to be free from resentment under experience of wrong, to cultivate the ability to distinguish between right and wrong, and to cultivate the ability to distinguish between the real and unreal. So essentially, this neophyte had to have a sense of these values. But these are all things that if we want to live healthy lives, we have to do as well. We have to do those things as well. Each and every one of us is a neophyte from the day that we are born, right? And we are looking to be initiated into the sect of whatever the Most High has in store for us. This is hands-on training, folks. This is not the end. We move through this life and we learn and we grow and we try and we fail and we make mistakes and we do stupid things and we feel stupid and we this and we that, but we grow. But we grow. It's all part of the process, an important part of us doing what we can to become who it is the Most High wants us to be. Now, the Let Your Motto Be Resistance is a very famous book, and it was written by Earl Afari, and it's about the life and the thought of Henry Highland Garnet, who was an abolitionist in the time of Frederick Douglass. And in the book, he says, Henry Highland Garnet says, "Let your motto be resistance, resistance, resistance. No oppressed people have ever secured their liberty without resistance." Let me say it again. No oppressed people have ever secured their liberty without resistance. And I'm saying, this is my quote, don't let a desire to escape your lessons rob you of the opportunity to further uncover your God self. Don't let your fear of experiencing that dissonance that comes from knowing that you've done something wrong or acted in a way that's not cool rob you and oppress you, right? Let your motto be resistance, coupled with M.I.T. That's where your greatest contribution is needed. Ashe. All right. So at this time, this is the time that we fling wide open the doors of our community. As you know, we are a community of people. We cannot do our work without folks, and we need even more good folks to come and join us in our work. Folks at home, if you've never visited us, please feel free to come out. If you happen to be in Oakland, we're here every Sunday, and we ain't going nowhere, so says we. That's right. And folks in the room, if you would like to join the community, know that you are welcome, and know that the doors are not just open on Sunday. They are open every day. You only have to reach out and call us. All righty. So now we have our closing. If we can come together at the front of the room.